Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. Thank you for all of the folks from the India team and overseas who are joining. Happy Diwali to all of you, the Festival of Light. And hopefully in this webinar, we will shed some light on clean core. So today is all about clean core, what it is, what it isn't, and why it matters. And I am super psyched to have an amazing panel with me here today, including Angel Cruz Parilla, Scotty Ralphs, and Rob Seifert. So we'll start with Angel. Why don't you take a moment to introduce yourself to the audience?
Absolutely. Thank you, John, for having me. Hello, everyone, and happy Diwali to you all. My name is Angel Cruz. I'm part of SAP Product Management, and I'm focused on Grow with SAP and S/4HANA Cloud Public Edition. I have around 25 years of experience working with SAP solutions, focused on the ERP, really. And for the last 8 years, I've been working exclusively with S/4HANA Cloud Public Edition, where, as you know, the clean core is one of our big things. So happy to be here.
Welcome, Angel, and thank you for joining us. Scotty, want to introduce yourself?
Certainly. Hey, Scotty Ralphs. I'm part of the same organization and similar role as Angel. Like Angel, I've been working the last 8 years specifically with Public Edition for S/4HANA Cloud, working more in a technical background. And in total, I have over 35 years of ERP and associated back office systems experience, probably one of every job over the course, everything from user to developer to running IT shops, and have a lot of experience in running those IT shops and made a lot of mistakes along the way that hopefully I can help allow you to avoid those.
Awesome. And as Jensen Wang says, if you haven't made mistakes and suffered, you haven't learned. So, and then
I've learned plenty.
Yeah. Well, he clearly has learned a lot in NVIDIA. He's doing pretty well for himself. So, hey, Rob Seifert, you and I have been talking together for, oh my God, almost a decade now. And finally, I got you on a webinar. Welcome.
Well, I'm happy to join. Hello, everyone. My name's Rob Seifert, and I do go way back with John. Prior to joining SAP 3 years ago, I was a customer for 26 years, and I've worked with SAP back from 1996. I was an end user, a citizen developer. I've been a business leader, an IT leader, and I was part of moving us from ECC to S/4HANA prior to joining SAP. I've learned a lot along the way. I can relate to mistakes being made, things that I thought made sense back then. And as you take a look back and see the overhead that it created and how much it slowed us down for some of the things that we wanted to do more strategically, I've learned a lot. And I preach a lot now about Grow and the clean core standard functionality and thinking really deeply before you start to deviate from those standard functions. So thank you very much for having me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all for joining. Let's get a little bit of housekeeping. So today's agenda, we did some introductions. We're going to talk a little bit about the clean core. Again, what is it? What is it not? I think it's just as important we understand what it is all about. Why does it matter? And how do we get there in terms of a mindset and focus? As always, there's Rosie the robot from the Jetsons, keeping us clean. Housekeeping wise, the session is being recorded. So, you know, for all of you on here, feel free to share the link with your colleagues. We will be putting it up on the website and then have it after about 30 days, we put that right up into our YouTube channel. You can ask questions throughout. You don't need to hold your questions till the end. And in fact, many of the questions are great ways for us to jump on topics that we may not have thought about. And then I would encourage you, go check out our other webinars on public cloud, subscription billing, revenue recognition, and the myriad other topics. There are about 120 different webinars out there, and we have sorted them out by channels so that you can go in and kind of check out your subjects. And speaking of checking out, contact us, check us out on our website. We've got lots of great content on there. You can engage with us on Facebook or even Apple iTunes. We have an Apple iTunes Insights to Action podcasts you can check out. We're at LinkedIn, iHeartRadio, believe it or not. And then, as I mentioned, YouTube, we have several hundred videos available on a variety of different subjects that you can check out. And we've created a bunch of different playlists and ways that you can sort the material so that you can find what you're looking for in all these subjects. So you're not here to listen to me talk about my website. You're here to listen to and engage with some smart people. And so what we're going to do right now is dive into, what is clean core? And I think, what I'll set up here is we hear a lot about the public cloud. We hear a lot about private cloud. SAP and a lot of other organizations talk a lot about this concept of clean core, keeping that basic SAP or basic ERP application clean and extending it. I thought it would be helpful to leverage the context out of a great white paper that I would suggest you check out about extensibility on SAP Cloud. But in the definition here, it says a clean core is defined as an SAP S/4HANA cloud solution that is up to date, documented, unmodified, consistent, efficient, and has custom extensions decoupled from source code. Oh my God, that's a mouthful. So what I thought we could do is engage the team here on different perspectives, and we'll start, Angel, with you. What does all of this mean to you? What does clean core in your mind mean? And maybe you can share that, and Scotty, we'll ask you for the kind of the technical view on that in a moment.
Sure, absolutely. So one of the key drivers for the quickest time to value that our customers get from public cloud and grow with SAP is the fact that it comes preloaded with 600 plus best practices. And these best practices are a group of standard processes that are already pre-configured and even with sample data, and they're available for our customers probably between 48 and 72 hours after their contract is signed. And what that means is that after those 72 hours, you can start working in the system and you can start testing your processes, your to-be processes right away. That's what we call the core. So the core are those best practices that are coming from all these 50 years of experience from SAP working with the key players in every industry. So we'll, as you said, John, we'll talk about this clean core from different perspectives. The one that I'm going to talk about quickly is the one that for me means staying standard, so staying within those best practices as much as we can. Of course, every solution has to be customized. There is no such a thing as out of the box. But I will complement it with staying standard to stay current, because in this, one of those benefits also from Grow with SAP and S4 Public Edition really is the fact that we deliver those innovations constantly on a monthly basis, at smaller scale, and then large scale, 1,000 plus new innovation items every 6 months. The fact that our customers stay standard, adopting those best practices and deviating only when they need to in those customizations, allow them to receive those innovations and take advantage of that new functions that SAP delivers for them. I'll pause there.
Okay. I wasn't sure if you cut off. Absolutely. No, that's a great point. And that whole innovation cycle is so important that it allows you to update. And we'll talk about that, in a moment. Scotty, from your perspective, that you're the technologist. What does it mean technically when we talk about best practices and the source code and all of that?
Yeah, so one of the things is when I look at the core, a clean core, which really means, using the software, using the solution in the manner in which the, author of the solution or the developer of the solution intended it to be, right? So what does that really mean, right? How do you use that, right? So we, Clean Core is not just, hey, I get this blank thing and I can just work with it, because we provide a set of tools and a whole complement of tools and a variety of different capabilities we can get into later that allows you to adapt the solution to behave in a manner. Now, the key thing here is to be able to use it in a manner that's not going to create unnecessary technical debt, meaning, as Angel was saying, hey, we've got upgrades coming every 6 months. We're doing, quiet drops on a monthly basis. Those upgrades require effort. And when you do, customizations in what I would say in an unnatural manner, it becomes the gift that keeps on giving, meaning every release I have to accommodate for my unnatural behavior, right? Where I'm not working in alignment with the designed architecture of the author of the software, of the system. So what's really important is that if you're working within kind of the framework that, the software provides you, that provides you a core that you can work with that allows you to then more easily update. Because moving into the world of SaaS, we really are moving towards, hey, never having to do an implementation again, because you're going to be on an ever evolving solution that you don't have to deviate from or replace or upgrade in massive amounts. You can just grow and evolve with it. And having that clean core really gives you that quick path to be able to do that. And also by sticking within the role in kind of the rules of engagement for those solutions, it allows you the ability then to quickly determine how, what direction you're going to go in, but it gives you the ability to really move forward quickly and easily and adopt new technologies and not put yourself in a box where you ever have to decustomize, because you never want to do that, because it's a zero value add activity that costs money.
Yeah, we'll talk about that zero value add towards the end here, because I love the way you phrased it early, a while back, and so we'll give you some credit for that in a little while. What I do like and what I hear is, look, over the past 50 years, SAP has worked with thousands, tens of thousands of businesses and looked at core processes. These core processes being things like I pay bills, I collect money, I reconcile my bank account, I have inventory and I check my inventory and I do a two-way, three-way match. Those processes over the past 50 years kind of pretty much are mostly the same. And what we're hearing is the core is this sum of best, we'll call it best practices, but this idea of this is the way most companies do it, and this is the the way you do it is, and we want to keep that core as clean as possible, because it's upon that core that SAP is making innovation. Is that a fair statement, Scotty?
Yeah, that's 100% an accurate statement, right? If you work within that core, and you have to understand that as you are adapting that core and using the tool sets, that you use them in a manner that is forward looking. You don't want to customize yourself into a box using technologies or deviating so far from these best practices that makes you then have to realign when maybe either the compliance or the statutory marketplace is requiring different ways of operating, or just new technologies, and you've already kind of taken yourself down a path that then requires you to kind of back out of that, right? So very much spot with that.
Great, thank you. Rob, I'm going to turn to you, because you do a lot of, I know Angel, you've been involved with customers, but Rob, over these years, you've spent a lot of time with customers, particularly on the upfront selling side of things. Maybe you can bring in, what do you think a customer hears when they hear clean core, and how is SAP kind of helping them understand what that means?
Well, first I try to relate it back to where they are today. And I was on a call just yesterday with a customer that had built their own ERP, and they said, we can't get anything done because every time we need even the smallest change, it takes forever. We don't do anything standard. So we're building on top of something that we built 20 years ago, and we don't necessarily know why we made decisions we did 20 years ago, but we don't have the time to go back and figure it out. So we just keep adding on to it. And by adding on to it, we elongate how long it takes us to make any changes. And what I hear is a common theme with our customers is not only are their systems not connected, their processes are not connected, they're not efficient. And a lot of times we find out that changes that they made were because, well, I really need this data element, or I need that data element for reporting. And then no one understands why. So, there's been a lot of great conversation over the last few years about something called technical wealth versus technical debt. And really, the public cloud offers a great opportunity for you to do a reset. Why don't you take a look at those standardized operational processes that you use that are not really moving the needle one way or the other? And why not look at choosing a standardized process? Because if you use a standardized process, we continue to build out more and more AI functionality so you can automate those processes. And the more you deviate from the process, the harder it is for you to automate, the harder it is for you to advance what other future goals you have in mind on your roadmap as well. So really, one of the big things about sticking to standard, it helps you manage your environment a lot easier, a lot faster. You adapt a lot faster. And as time goes on, we see that there's less IT resources available to support systems than there used to be. So why don't you want to be more thoughtful about when you want to make a change so that you're not having your IT resources working on things that aren't moving the needle versus, hey, here's a new way we want to do business. Hey, here's a new way we want to go to market. I'd rather you be spending time on those areas. And then again, back to what Scotty said, testing. It really speeds up the testing. The more you are to standard, we have automated test scripts within the system. The faster you can understand if there's any issues with an update, the faster you can adapt to them and move forward. So the more that I talk to customers about that, the more that they start to relate back to, wow, I know the pain I'm having today. I could see where this could help me be better tomorrow. Now, the reality is I can say that, but this is where, for another webinar, organizational change management comes in, because it's easier to understand that and say that up front. But when you start feeling the effects of that, that's where you need a strong organization behind it. Leadership from the top down, engagement from the bottom up, and a strong partner or leadership externally to help you if you don't have those internal resources.
And that's a great point, Rob. And you gave me an idea for at least two other webinars that we're going to follow up with you guys on. One is, I think OCM is a great one, and we need to talk about that. And I know, Angel, you and I have talked about this on 2 or 3 of the sales cycles that we're running, that customers always underestimate that. And we'll talk about that towards the end when we get to mindset, because that's so important. The other one, Rob, and I want to follow up, will be on AI. It's such a big topic today, but when you think about the pre-COVID days, we used to do webinars and discussions on RPA, robotic process automation, and machine learning, and the quality of the data is so important for that, and the consistency of the data and the consistency of the process in order to optimize those AI engines is going to be important. So I can see another webinar coming up pretty fast on those, guys.
Sounds good here.
One other thing to Rob's point is as you start looking at those standard processes, right? One thing you want to look at is when you're looking to adopt a standard, look at it and ask yourself the question is, if you're going to deviate from standard, is this a competitive advantage for me?
Sure.
Because if not, then why are you doing it?
Yeah, great point. Great point,
Because
Scotty.
it keeps all of your operational costs down. The more the closer you stick to standard, the less you're having to spend operationally, the more that allows those same team members then to be able to focus on innovation type projects as opposed to keeping the lights on or, kind of the care and feeding of, what you've built to date.
Yeah, no, and maybe Angel, you can comment on that too, but also relative to statutory changes, we all know that SAP is probably the leader in the capability of keeping up with statutory changes. A lot of other companies out there rely on third-party solutions. SAP's dedication to making sure that things like revenue recognition and leasing and treasury, all of those impairment options and things like that, SAP is always updating Angel, in order to get those innovations, you got to keep clean core, right?
Absolutely. And as you said, particularly on a public cloud, we have right now 59 countries where we have the most customers that are SAP delivered. So it's those best practices, including all the reporting and forms and statutory requirements, are maintained by SAP. So those extensions or integrations that we decide to do because they are needed have to be a differentiating factor. It cannot be just that, as Scotty was saying, to keep the lights on, because SAP is going to do it for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, good point. So, we're hearing about this, and I know, Angel, we, and team, we've talked about clean core and this idea of public cloud, if you will, or cloud being, you can't change it. There's not a lot of change, and the reality is that that's not necessarily so. Just because you're adhering to and thinking about clean core doesn't mean that it's my way or the highway, and there's no highway option here. The reality is SAP uses something called extensibility. The concept being, we're not calling it customization because we're not customizing the application. We're extending its capabilities in specific areas. And to highlight that, and we'll ask the team to comment, we really have this extensibility in two basic, I'll call it two basic flavors or thoughts. On the left-hand side of this chart, which I love, is really all about what can you do inside the app. Just because the core is clean and you can't modify the existing core software doesn't mean that you can't adapt it or extend the power. One of those areas is in the concept of in-app extensibility. Kind of the what you see is what you get changes, right? As you pointed out, Angel, in the beginning, you don't always, just because it's out of the box doesn't mean that you're not interested in adapting new labels, using some of the configuration capabilities. Remember, just because it's a process doesn't mean that it's not a process within a certain tolerance. There are adaptabilities that you can put in. Those are in the app itself. And in addition to that, you can do something called developer extensibility, and it allows you to use some ABAP code changes. And I'll ask you guys to talk a little bit more about that, that capability. But again, it's not, you can't change the core, but you can use ABAP programming to do things that are similar to bodies and BOPs. We'll touch on that in a minute. But we also have on the right-hand side this idea of side by side. And that is the concept of extending your platform to include other apps, whether they're SAP apps like entitlements management, subscription billing, and many of the other apps that are out there. You can extend outside of the core using that and using APIs and the BTP to connect those, or developing your own extensibilities. And they're designed to be low code, no code, or pro code, very simple extensions. So starting, maybe we'll go back again to Angel, to you, because I think you do a great job. Let's talk a little bit about what you're seeing out there and help users understand a little bit better, what are these all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So to me, the fundamental change is the initial question. So in the past, we used to get in front of the user and ask them, how do you do this process? And then blueprint the whole solution. Now that question turns into, why can't you use this process? And as I said, these best practices are guidance and are out of the box and they run smoothly. And that doesn't mean you cannot extend the solution in certain ways. And those ways, maybe when we started working with public cloud 8 years ago, they were not as flexible as they are now. But those ways now are as flexible as you can find in any on-premise solution or private cloud for that matter. You have this low-no code that you were describing just now, which is anything related to a custom field or a custom report that is as easy to create as a drag and drop. But those, again, have to be for those that are required. Because to give you an example of some customers that I worked with recently, I moved with one of my customers, I moved from over 1,200 reports that they had been using over and creating over the years, landed in 115 reports. That is kind of 90% decrease, where a mix, of course, some of them were not required and they were created for specific things and not needed anymore. And some others were just very complex things created from scratch that now with this drag and drop functionality, you can just create in 5 minutes and make it even self-service for the customers, for the end users to create whenever they need them. For those requirements that are also needed within the stack, needed still very tightly created within the walls of the cloud ERP, that's when you have that developer extensibility, which brings you the ability to do everything that we've been doing for the last 30 years in all the previous SAP ERPs, right? Which is coding with ABAP. And finally, for those that are larger, I haven't seen, and I have seen a lot of adoption of that. Is fairly new. Let's say it's a year and a half old. The developer extensibility came with the 3-system landscape. But what I've seen mostly used is the side-by-side that you described, because that's outside of the ERP. You have the functionality, yes, and you can build either those big extensions to calculate commissions in a certain way. For example, outside of the ERP, you don't have to build this huge monolithic architecture that we used to have. And also, if there is some specific third-party solution that you can integrate to, that's also something that we do through business technology platform. I'm sure Scotty can say more about that. But this combination of these 3 dimensions give our customers all they need. I have not encountered many occasions where the customer said, I have no options to achieve what I want. It's a standard. If it's not a standard, it's extendable. And if it's not extendable, we can integrate it with a third-party solution.
Great. Thank you. Scotty, share some of your insights there.
Yeah, so one thing I want to make a point of is the term extensibility and extension is a very purposeful choice, right? So that when I think about extensibility, means you're extending the core, which brings you back to leaving the core alone and you're just being additive to that core. Now, where I look at this, and this is where you kind of want to look at establishing your architectural controls if you don't have them in place when you start looking at these, of making decisions of where do you want to, do your extensions and what makes the most sense. When you start working more towards, the side-by-side extensibility, think of that almost as extensions as a service, or even customization as a service, so that you make a call and you run your extensions, and then you're able to return back to the core and back to those best practices. It gives you a lot of capability to be very agile, to be able to quickly be able to deploy solutions, be able to test them out, be able to adjust them without having to worry about how much you're going to impact the core on the left side, right? Or how you're going to work with that core. So it gives you that ability to give you that freedom to have that agility to kind of really be able to, develop quickly, either succeed or fail quickly, and then be able to determine kind of more of a permanent solution. So it really looks well that way. But there's also really that need on the side where, these are things that you need, a new field for your coding block, something else that you need, you can do very quickly, and then you want to be able to put logic on it and it's tightly coupled with the solution. It works great and it's easily upgradable. These extensions, when you're working within the solution, are not what you would consider customizations of the past. These don't bring the technical debt that Rob was talking about. that you would see in kind of earlier generations of ERPs that are out there, or some that are still in the marketplace. This gives you the ability to adapt the system to your own custom rules to allow you to, meet the needs of your business at the same time, not put yourself at a disadvantage for, perpetual upgrades.
Maybe you can talk for a moment, and I'm going to get to Rob, you in a second, because I'm interested in what you're hearing and it. But Scotty, maybe you can share for people. I mean, a lot of this, particularly on the side-by-side extensibility, but even in some of the in-app, relies on the BTP. What is that all about, and what is the business technology platform, and how does that enable this?
So the business technology platform is exactly that. I'd like to really kind of focus in on the first piece of that, which is the business side of this, right? This is a technology platform that is both a development environment as well as a runtime environment, and it's delivered as a cloud solution that allows you, that is a collection of services across 5 different pillars. So you can do app development, process automation, you can do integrations, you can work with data. There's AI services that are in there that allows you to build virtually any type of solution that you want. And the way that you work between the two with your core ERP system is you connect to that through APIs. So everything's loosely coupled, following business rules, but it gives you a complete suite of tools to build, so much so that SAP is building their own solutions on the business technology platform. We have partners and we have customers also actually even monetizing solutions that they've built on the business technology platform as well. So it gives you the ability to build workflows, to integrate with third-party solutions, build your own data storage, leverage analytics such as Analytics Cloud or DataSphere to be able to model that data in a manner that you can use, to be able to chain together events to extend business processes, to have the visibility into those processes as well. So it's a complete toolkit to really allow you to build as much as complex as you want, but also with the low code side to be able to let your citizen developers develop quick, easy solutions such as, maybe some workflow processes, and you can get that in the hands of the knowledge workers that can actually get those to market much more quickly.
Yeah, and a lot of you made an interesting point. There's a whole library of existing extensions out there. So, people can customers can take advantage of those existing integrations, whether they're APIs between third-party solutions and SAP, but really also, like Bramasol, we've all developed some IP that's on there that might extend, if you will, the power of SAP. So.
And that is the beauty of these modular and composable solutions, right? You're putting the standard from SAP, then on top of that, you're using the business technology platform to extend it. Then you are using those industry solutions that are also from SAP, like Ariba, SuccessFactors, and so on. And then you get into the ecosystem and you bring all the IP that you're mentioning that are extending capabilities or focusing on a deeper niche in certain industry. And then, of course, you bring all that AI capability that we have now to complement this end-to-end focus ERP, end-to-end process focus ERP that we are now leveraging for our customers.
Yeah, it really is an amazing platform that we've built actually internally to use internally. That's how it actually started out. And once we got to a point of realizing the value we were getting out of it, we decided to build a product out of it. So we use it ourselves internally at SAP. And back to what you said, there's so many pre-built integrations already in there. And as Angel had mentioned too, all the AI capabilities that you can get into, from something as simple as automating some of your workflows, robotic process automation, machine learning, using existing large language models or building your own. The amount of extensive functionality available there is impressive. And the fact that we're building our extensions on it as well is just showing you how much we actually even value it internally.
Absolutely. And Rob, maybe you can, thank you for that, spot on. Maybe you can talk a little bit also about how is the concept of extensibility is changing the conversation with customers who have a what I'll call a misperception of the my way or the highway. How is that helping them feel more comfortable with the solution?
What I do generally is I start off by telling them we have these amazing best practices. I tell them the reason behind them, but I also say there is no customer that has gone 100% best practices with no changing. That's not a reality. We get 80 to 90% of the way there with best practices. And back to what Angel had said earlier, one of the amazing things about best practices, if you're willing to start with that approach, we found in general, people are better editors than authors. When you have to start with a blank sheet of paper, tell me what your process is, it slows the process down. But when you have something in front of you, and we can talk from a strategic or regulatory perspective, why do you need to deviate from this? And if you don't, okay, let's move on. It saves you time. We find people that are going live with this approach go live and save about 25% in their implementation costs, because you're sticking to standard. You're not building something from scratch. You're leveraging something already there. But then we get into the part, when we talk about this extensibility, it could be as simple as I need to rename some fields. I need to add a new field and some logic behind it. I need to add a new object, or for those legacy SAP users, a table. You can do that stuff, but we just do it in a way to where you don't impact the core. You're not going in and making changes to core code. And by doing that, it continues to allow you to accept automatic monthly updates and automatic semi-annual upgrades. So you're moving faster. You're receiving new innovations faster. So when we explain it at a high level that way, and then we start to prove it out by going through our steps of understanding what they need, the lights start to click.
That's a great point, Rob. So, and I love this because I love the idea. And of course, Angel, you and I talked, you were kind enough to share this insights with my team a few weeks ago. And this whole piece over here on developer extensibility right here really kind of opened my eyes in a way to really understanding the options that are here, and the fact that, it's not my way or the highway. Having said that, of course, we've had a discussion of just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? And maybe I'll, Rob, that you can leverage off of that. But here's an example of, what's a process for thinking about whether I can or should implement any of these extensibilities, right? And we use this in some of our fit to standard process, right? Where we go through the workshops, we do an example of, so here's how the system runs. We show you the system, we show you the processes using tools like Signavio and Lean IX, and then we make a decision. And most of the time you want to say, hey, can we use standard? Absolutely. But you're inevitably, sometimes you'll end up with, well, I've got a delta. And you need a process that really helps you think about whether or not I need to make this change. And so, we've kind of split it up with this, into, is it in-app, right? And we think of those extensibilities we just talked about, whether it's the in-app itself or the developer extensibilities, or is it a side-by-side? The point here really is the decision tree of, how and when do I want to decide how to do that? And maybe Rob and then Scotty and Angel, you guys can comment on what you've experienced in that decision process.
So one thing I can tell you, historically, what I find, there's two major buckets that I find out about customers today with how their existing landscape is. They have lots of changes and they have no idea why they're in there. They have lots of changes they've made because of reporting reasons, whether they're still valid or not. So the first thing I like to do is question, what is the reason why you're saying you need to deviate? And sometimes it's just not as clear. We keep talking about this. Is it strategic or is it regulatory? When I start to hear, well, that's how we've always done it. Okay, red flag. So let's start to categorize these. If you have a very good answer of why you have to have it that way, and it makes sense, we'll put it in bucket A. But if not, we need to research this further and really question, what is the value you're going to get out of this if you move this similar process over from your old way to your new way? And what are the potential long-term impacts by doing so? And once we get to a point where we can make a valid business decision on it, and let's say you need to do it, then we start talking about, now where does it make sense to make this happen? Another thing that we do is also sometimes people are like, well, I'm so worried, this is how it used to work, it works smoother that way. Sometimes what we've seen people do is say, okay, we're going to go with FITSA standard minus those things that we can clearly say are strategic or regulatory. Everything else we're going to put in a bucket. 6 months from now, we will come back and look at that bucket again, and we will see, are we missing gaps by not having implemented any of these? And what we find a lot of times is the answer is no. It's because people are still thinking about how they do things today, what they thought they needed today, or who needed what today, not really thinking about what they truly need to do their business more efficiently.
That's a great point. It's almost a force fitting of let's go with standard, and if you have a problem, we still have extensibility available. We can fix it later on. Interesting idea. Yeah.
So let me,
Yeah.
the way I look at it is, first we define with those fit to standard sessions, the what and the why, because it's not just fit to standard, it's not that rigid, it's leverage standard. And then once you're leveraging a standard, then you identify those gaps, those delta, what we call the backlog. And the backlog is the what. And then that, by creating, I've seen our customers creating a design authorities, basically the CIO, CFO, and the leaders of these deployments are the ones that are going to go back to the process owners and say, tell me the why. What is the impact if I don't have this, whether because you had it and you're losing it, or because it was there and you don't know why. And once you define the why, those, let's say, approved backlog items, then you go into the how. So how are we going to do it? And then you go into these options that we were just discussing to extend the solution or to connect to other solutions. And then finally, in order to also enable this time to value, then you go to the when. Why? Well, because we're not doing those 3-year implementation, big bangs, 100 countries. That's just not the way we do it. We go with a minimum viable product. We go live in, I think, an average of 17 weeks now, which is a little over 4 months, which is pretty impressive. And then starting then you say, okay, well, when can I bring these additional pieces of functionality or reports or forms? Are those all part of the minimum viable product, or are they wave 2? And then that's how you realize the value that fast in that agile mode to bring these extensions live, not necessarily delaying the value of bringing all this standard content live right away.
That's a great
I'd
point.
like to add on to that a little bit. I love what you just said, Angel, about the idea. One of the other things we talk to customers about is, what do you really need right now? Let's get you up and running as fast as possible so you're getting a return on your investment. Everything doesn't have to happen right now. Let's define what the clear line is. That doesn't mean everything stops. It's like, hey, now you're up and running, you're using the system. Let's continue to build out and evolve. One other thing that I found, back to what Angel was saying, we had one extreme example where the CEO was so fed up with how customized they were that they made a decision that no customization would be approved unless the people requesting it came in front of them, validated it, and explained the business needs and reason for it. And what you found was most fell by the wayside because people couldn't justify well enough to talk to the CEO. Now, that is a little bit of an extreme case, but why are we not thinking about that regardless if we were going to ask for it?
That's a great point.
And just to your point earlier, John, this is going to be on a line of LOB by LOB, line of business by line of business, because when you get to the finance people and you say, what is that you do differently? Well, that's not going to be much. When you go to procurement, that's also not going to be much. Everybody buys the same way, almost. Everybody does finance the same way. Now you go into sales, right? That's already part of the secret sauce, no? And then you go into manufacturing. Those are line of businesses that you will be expecting some more, the need for some more customization, for some more extensions, because that really is where the differentiating factor of the company is against their competition. So that is all gonna have to have those Googles put on to, okay, do you really need this to make your company grow and more successful, or is this just a commodity that you used to have and you don't know why?
Sure. Sure. And while we're talking about that, Scotty, you had a great statement that you made the other day, and we're going to dive right into it. I think that the driving factor, and I'll let you kind of say it, extensibility, distilling it down, you kind of use this phrase, and I'll let you put it out there.
Yeah, so, when I've been running shops in the past and doing, portfolio and program management with my business leaders, it comes down to one of these, right? I'm spending money on your behalf in my IT organization. So if you're going to have me, spend as a officer of the company or the enterprise that I'm working with, and you want me to spend, these dollars on behalf of the company, and I'm going to change this system, is this change going to make you money, or is it going to save you money? And by how much, right? Because then you have to go through and do some of that analysis before you even lay out your architectural principles of what direction I want to go with side by side or in app and looking at that. But what is this change going to cost me? Not just to write it, not just to deploy it, but to test it every release, to be able to modify it. How much is it going to be modified in the future? And then, what happens is if we deviate from this, or we want to return to standard, what's that going to cost? So you have to look at the entire life cycle of what you're being asked to modify, and determine, hey, is it making money or is it saving me money? And if so, how much? And does this decision make worth it, or do you have to look at other opportunities? But these are the true things, because if it's not doing either one of these, my question comes back to, why are we doing it?
Yeah. No, that's a great point. And the only other one would be it's regulatory, so I have to, right? But
and that's saving you money by way of fines.
Saving money that's right, by not getting fined by the government, right? That would be good.
Exactly. So that's where I put that into that bucket, right? It's cost avoidance, it's risk avoidance, but that risk avoidance is actually saving you money.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just love that, because it's so clear. When I think of the workshops that we're going to be doing in the near future on several of our projects, being able to position this in the kickoff and position all of this very clearly, and boiling it down to, well, don't make it, make a decision. Did it make you money, or will it save you money? And I love your other point, and maybe, the other, Angel or Rob, you want to comment on, it's not just the cost of the extensibility itself. We all know it's like in the old days a RICEF, right? You do programming and it costs you money to do it. But what is the downstream cost as do I have to do regression testing on it? What happens, for example, if it's a side by side and part of the application you're using, if you're integrating with something else on the outside, what if they change? How does that get affected? What do you have to do, right?
Yeah, I'll give you a perfect example.
Go ahead.
We have automated test scripts within the public cloud. You deviate too far from the standard process, you can't use those. And we offer the ability during upgrades, after the upgrade is done, we will automatically do a post-upgrade test run for you of all the scripts that are exactly to standard or slight variations from standard for you, to help do another follow-up test to make sure everything's working right. You deviate too far, you customize, that's on you. So the other thing is, now the next time you need another change to that area, how much longer does it take to make that change? Because you need to figure out how that change is going to work with the previous changes that you've made to the system. And sometimes that's a snowball effect.
Spot on.
And it takes you to the cloud mindset, right? Another one of those hashtags. The cloud mindset in these type of solutions do not stay as we're doing this analysis and pre-sales, or during the implementation, as we're saying, in the fit to standard, because it's a SaaS solution. And as Cody said, this is not the previous version to T5 or anything. This is your final ERP. Then the cloud mindset has to remain throughout operations. And that's, as Rob said, is supported by SAP with this post-upgrade test and many other things as we support the infrastructure and so on. But it also has to come from the customer. That commitment is not only for the 6 months of the implementation, it has to continue. And if you're looking for something and the customer needs something that is identified as an extension for their survival, let's say, and growth, the first idea is not how to extend the solution. The first idea is, if this is an industry standard, why is it not included in the standard packaging provided by SAP? And if it's not, well, is it in the roadmap? Because it's not only me, many other companies of my industry need it. And if it's not in the roadmap, then we go to SAP's customer influence portal, where I'm going to suggest, hey, I have this need, I have these other companies, system companies or companies that I know that they need these things too, and then we influence and create this roadmap together, so we minimize more and more with the innovation those backlogs for your company and for future companies in your industry.
That's a great point, Angel. Absolutely. And then coming back to that concept of mindset, I think it's so important. It's not just a process, if you will. It's not just a statement. It's a mindset, and everybody kind of has to align with that mindset. And it's so important to have it from the top down and from a partner perspective. You have to have a partner with SAP, with your partner, et cetera, that understands, that mindset, right?
Absolutely
Well, and on top
critical.
of that, I was going to say, really, the sooner that you can get a defined organizational change management focus to support your leadership with the partner, and get people from the user community engaged early on, get them to understand and see the value, because it really, yes, you can force things down from the top down, but you want things to go as smooth as possible. You want to understand critical needs as quickly as possible. Get people from those business units that are impacted the most engaged in the project early on. Get them to understand the vision. Get them to understand the end state, the value that it's going to be to the company as a whole, not necessarily just to them as an organization.
Yeah.
Great,
Help
Rob.
them understand what's in it for them. And that takes me to the change management, which, John, I'm looking forward to our next webinar on that.
There you go. But I'd like you to comment just for a moment, as we're going to wrap up in a minute, but a lot of people, I think, have a misconception about OCM, organization change management, on this kind of an area, and either underinvest or overinvest in some ways, because they're thinking of OCM as, oh, look at all the great t-shirts and kickoff parties that I had, and we're all going to have a rah-rah session. And that's not, that's awesome. God bless people who do that, but that's not what this is all about, right, Angel?
No, OCM is not training. It's not just training. The training is part of it. And in an environment where the solution, or 95% of the solution already exists, is delivered by the vendor like SAP, and is available for you to test in 72 hours, the value of the time now moves into, how do you adopt those solutions? How do you learn how to use them? And how do you ensure that your users will actually use it? So help them, as I was saying to Rob earlier, help them understand what's in it for them. Why is this solution easy to learn, easy to use, and actually help them do their job more efficiently, and therefore they can dedicate their time to other tasks that are more value oriented than repeatedly putting journal entries in the system, for example.
Exactly. All right, guys. We'll dive into mindset a lot more with OCM. We'll have another follow-up to this. Also, I want to explore AI. Let's talk about some of the key takeaways here, and I'd like each of you just to make your own comment. Think about it as I wrap up here. I think the key takeaways here are, Clean Core is not just focusing on a technology. It's about what matters to you and investing there. What differentiates your business? What matters? As Scotty so well said, if it doesn't make you money or save you money, why are you doing it? I want to position out there, we've talked a lot about the public core, cloud, because that's, you know, a key focus, and that's the real manifestation of this. But don't forget, you know, SAP offers private cloud, and just because private cloud has the opportunity to do customization, again, it doesn't mean you should. There are a ton of best practices, all the tools there. It's essential to have the mindset that you need to make this happen, the alignment, the commitment, and the support of the executive team and all through that. And, you know, I would say for companies that see so much change in today's business, clean core to me is essential to nimbleness, whether it's scalability, flexibility, adaptability. You know, the future, we don't know what's going to happen. Look at how fast the world of AI is changing what we know, what we do. And clean core is just a great way to do that. So I want to thank each of you guys. It's been a tremendous opportunity, learning experience for me. As we wrap up, I'll ask each of you, I just have you on an order here, so it's random by name here. So I'm going to ask Angel, Rob, Scotty, just one key point you want the audience to take away, or anybody who's listening to this video.
My takeaway is you need to ask your question differently. You need to ask, why can I not adopt what's given to me in standard? And if the answer is valid and it adds value in the shape of your secret sauce, it makes you different from your competitors, then let's see how we can make that happen through those extensions, integrations, other solutions, SAP or non-SAP. But if the answer is not convincing your C-suite and the project management, then it's probably we probably need to rethink, is it worth going this extra cost of developing and then maintaining these extensions and solutions to deviate from standard?
Thank you, Angel. Rob?
So from my end, a little bit of an add-on to what Angel said. You know, what are your challenges today and what are your goals for tomorrow? And if your challenges are because of customizations you've made today and your goals are to be more nimble tomorrow, why are you not looking at standardizing so that you lessen the amount of time you're spending on those functions and supporting them versus building out new business models and looking for new ways to go to market?
Great. And Scotty, to wrap us up and take us home?
Yeah, certainly. So, you know, where we've said clean core does not mean that you are getting a shrink wrap version of software, right? It does give you the ability to extend. And with that extension gives you the ability to work within the realm of the design of the software to be able to extend it. So whereas old school solutions that Rob was just talking about, where you would do customization, is the gift that keeps on giving in creating technical debt and slowing down your processes operationally, a clean core is the gift that keeps on giving and giving you that ability to be nimble, to be able to upgrade and update easily and keeping your operational costs down.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you all three. It's been my pleasure to work with you on putting this together. I've learned so much, and hopefully the audience has as well. Thank you all, you guys. To all of you listening, thank you for joining. Happy Diwali to those who are listening. With that in mind, I will say thank you and wrap us up and make it a great day, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.